And so here's a question for you. What is the shortest a country has ever existed before deciding it wasn't worth the trouble? Not the shortest war, not the shortest reign, a whole country, a nation with a president and a constitution and a flag and the full burning conviction that these particular people in this particular place had finally had enough. The answer is 87 days. And the reason they quit, they couldn't buy beer. Well, that's reason enough, right? This is Drive-Thru Towns. I'm Andrew Wilcox. You're driving Highway 20 in Northern California, somewhere between Grass Valley and Yuba City, going the speed you go when you're just trying to get somewhere else. The Sierra Nevada foothills are doing their job. They're rolling gold brown in the dry months, just pretty enough to notice and not pretty enough to stop. There are pine trees. There are fire scars. There's a two-pump gas station with a handwritten sign in the window that may or may not be a joke. And then a green sign, rough and ready. You blink, you're already past it. And that's the deal with rough and ready California. Population, under 1,000. Elevation, 1,890 feet. A blur on the map that most people experience as a green sign and a mild curiosity. Something like Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. Something they mean to look up at later, something they forgot by the next exit. Here's why you should hit the brakes. The story of Rough and Ready starts, as so many American stories do, with a soldier who thought he knew better. In the fall of 1849, 12 men from Shoalsburg, Wisconsin, followed their captain, a man named Absalom Austin Townsend, into the California foothills. They'd served together in the Mexican War under General Zachary Taylor, a man so famously unflappable in battle, he'd earned the nickname Old, Rough, and Ready. They named their mining company after him. They named their camp after him. Captain Townsend had served under Taylor in the Black Hawk War of 1832, and the bond of the men who have marched together through someone else's country does not dissolve easily. The general had just been elected the 12th president of the United States. These men were from Wisconsin, and they were proud. They're going to name a whole town after their hero, stake their claims in California gold country, and build something that lasted. Zachary Taylor was dead in 16 months. Cholera, the White House, rigors of office. The man who survived battlefield charges at Buena Vista could not survive Washington, D.C. The president the entire town was named after, gone. Their patron saint, their North Star, evaporated before the paint dried, but the town stayed. By 1850, Rough and Ready had exploded. Tents were pitched on the flat and along the ravines everywhere. The population crested to 3,000. 3,000 people crowded into a canyon carved for 12. There were 7 saloons. There was a church, the first in the county. There was a certain amount of lawlessness that the government was, to put it charitably, not really addressing. And then there was a new mining tax. Into this powder keg walked Colonel E.F. Brundage, another Mexican War veteran, a man with a high-sounding voice and a higher-sounding idea. And he called a meeting. On April 7th, 1850, 11 years to the month, before Fort Sumter, a mass gathering of Rough and Ready citizens voted to secede from the United States of America. They drafted a constitution. They formed a cabinet. They elected Brundage as president. He ran unopposed, though 50 write-in votes were counted against him, which tells you something useful about the character of the electorate. His inaugural manifesto read in part, "We deem it necessary and prudent to withdraw from said territory and from the United States of America to form, peacefully, if we can, forcibly, if we must, the great republic of Rough and Ready." Paperwork was even sent to Washington, but Washington did not respond. Not a letter, not a messenger, not even a formal, "We've received your correspondence and find it simply ridiculous." The federal government looked at the great republic of Rough and Ready, a gold mining camp in the California foothills, populated largely by disgruntled Midwesterners, and decided it was not worth the ink. 100 men became very devoted to President Brundage, a nation of 3,000, 87 days. Here's what those 87 days look like if you close your eyes. Hi, the blacksmith bellows exhaling. The particular ring of iron on iron that carries a quarter mile in thin mountain air. The dust that never quite settles on a main street when more people arrive each week than arrived the week before. The smell of pine resin and turned earth and the faint chemical bite of mercury used in the sluice boxes to catch a gold that wasn't there. Inside Pippin's blacksmith shop, still standing, by the way, still in rough and ready, still bearing the name hand-lettered sign, something else was happening that had nothing to do with politics. A woman named Lola Montez had brought a child. Lola Montez was not someone you forgot. She had been the favorite of Louis I, King of Bavaria. She had danced her way across Europe and across every category of scandal the 19th century could devise. She had retired to the California foothills, of all places, because even infamy needs somewhere quiet to catch its breath. She had taken a liking to her neighbor's daughter, a red-haired, merry-eyed girl named Lotta Crabtree. One afternoon, Lola walked into Pippin's shop, stood the child on the great iron anvil, and clapped her hands. Lotta danced. The miners stopped. The bellows went quiet, and then the room showered the small red-haired girl with gold nuggets, because these were men who hadn't seen their children in a year. And sometimes the only language left for tenderness is the one you happen to have on hand. By age 12, Lotta Crabtree was a featured performer in San Francisco. By the 1880s, she was the highest paid actress in America. The woman who became show business's first millionaire launched her career standing on an anvil in a town that at that precise moment in history wasn't even technically part of the United States. The Great Republic was not built on clean ground. 2 miles from Pippin's shop, a man named Colonel William English ran what was called the Old Slave Mine. He had brought enslaved people from his Louisiana plantation to work it. Among them was a young woman named Caroline Allen. In 1851, while hitching her horse at the blacksmith shop, Caroline stuck her cottonwood riding switch into the muddy ground, and it grew. It grew to 75 feet over the next century. The people of Rough and Ready called it the slave girl tree. It stood beside the shop where Lotta danced, where the rebellion was born, where the republic was administered and then abandoned. It stood while the gold ran out and the population bled away. It stood until July 1962, when it fell across the highway. 112 years. One woman's riding switch pressed into the ground by someone who didn't choose to be there. The Republic declared independence. Some of the people inside were not free. That shadow doesn't leave. It just grows taller. So, July 1850, the 4th of July has come. The miners of the Great Republic want to celebrate. And isn't that just exquisitely American, wanting to celebrate a nation's independence after declaring your own? They send a man into Nevada City to buy whiskey for the party. The Nevada City saloon won't sell to him. You're foreigners now, they say. We don't sell to foreigners. The man rides back to Rough and Ready. He tells a story. They hold a vote that same afternoon, and they dissolve the Great Republic of Rough and Ready on the spot. Raise Old Glory back up the flagpole and throw what eyewitness accounts suggest was one of the rowdiest 4th of July parties the region had ever seen. 87 days, and then gone, because they couldn't buy beer. One actor in the town's annual reenactment play, they still do it every year. I mean, they've got chili and folk music and a theatrical production and everything. Put the whole arc into 12 words. We left because of alcohol. We came back because of alcohol. Here's what remains. The Fippen blacksmith shop, the Grange Hall, which survived a fire in 1859 that took almost everything, a yearly Succession Days festival in late June with a fireman's breakfast and a petting zoo and the fruit jar pickers doing bluegrass in the town square at 10 on a Sunday morning. A carved wooden prospector named Old Bill, who stood for years in the stump of the old cork elm on Main Street, the tree that had once shaded what locals called the Liar's Bench, where tall tales were the currency. Old Bill succumbed to termites in 2014. His remains are now inside the blacksmith shop, if you want to pay your respects. The population is under 1,000. Gold is long gone. The mines are closed. But here's the thing about Rough and Ready, the thing that Nevada County historian Bob Wyckoff put plainly enough that it deserves to be said straight. The town refuses to ghost. It has hung on tenaciously, long after every reason to stay has been worked out of the ground. Maybe that's the only real American inheritance. Not the gold, not the republic, which lasted less than a season, not the name of a president who died before anything he touched could take root. Just the refusal. The stubborn, slightly irrational, entirely human refusal to be a ghost. The green sign passes at 70 miles per hour, rough and ready. You've got somewhere to be, but for 87 days in 1850, 1,000 people in these hills looked at the country that made them and said, not today. Washington didn't even write back. And honestly, neither would you if you'd seen how it ended. This has been Drive-Thru Towns. I'm your host, Andrew Wilcox. A special thanks to Chloe Jones for providing our music. If you enjoyed this journey, please follow the podcast to stay updated on all our upcoming episodes. To keep the conversation going, you can connect with me on Instagram at 50 State Family. Find me on LinkedIn under Wilcox Legal, or reach out directly via email at wilcoxlegal@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next road.
'Cause I was wandering free on an American dream with a million things to see and do. But it's all good, I'm fine, had the time of my life.